Well, now we're on Principle 3, Parents Managing Their Own Emotions, their affect. And we're on Video 3, the positive side of parents managing their affect.
Exactly. What does it look like when we walk into a family system and they are actually utilizing this principle, or what does it look like when we leave a family system?
I was going to say it's more likely when we leave, because when we start a family, if they were using this principle in a positive way, we're less likely to be working with them.
One of
So
the things we
that's
haven't said before this is the mastery of this principle, or the grasping of it, is very often not shared at the same level between the adults.
that one is more proficient than the other.
One is more proficient than the
Proficient
other
than
with
the
this particular principle. But again, what we look for is that it's present in the family.
Right.
So what does it look like when it's present in the family? The principle, of course, is that parents need to be emotionally regulated themselves to a degree.
So with that, there are things that they particularly do, that they demonstrate a full range of emotions. And we're talking about just simply, they can be happy. They have times of happiness. They have times of sad. They have times of being afraid, and they have times of being mad. They actually get to have all four
Every day.
every day. You can do that, and too often, and we talked about this earlier. Parents end up having a flat affect or being really angry a lot, but they can have a full range of emotions. They shift back and forth within those emotions, and people who do that will also have a list of self-care things that
Exactly.
they just don't have on a piece of paper, but they do these self-care things.
One of the classic questions we ask is, what kind of things do you do to make your brain feel happy? Even, we encourage people to do 5-minute things, half a day things, full day things.
That's right.
What kind of things do you do when you notice yourself feeling sad and scared and turning it into angry, and you're just on edge? What kind of stuff do you do to get yourself back into happy or neutral?
Really hard for families. Some, especially the moms we've worked with, don't even express it. It's like, well, there's no even reason to talk about it. But as soon as they do, and the family acknowledges it, usually everybody's okay. They're okay with those self-care pieces, because one, it just makes everybody feel better when the mom's happy kind of statement.
Give them a short list for you of things that you do to make your brain feel happy.
Well, just yesterday, the hammock is set up outside. It was a beautiful,
Nice.
beautiful day for the hammock. I have a hanging chair. Swinging helps me, and it also helps a lot of the kids we work with. Just
Absolutely.
that swinging piece. Of course, I love to read. I've got sewing projects down there, all kinds of craft ideas. Yesterday, I came across a whole bag full of chandelier prisms at Goodwill for $3. It's like, oh, you know what I could do with all those? So my mind runs amok when you ask me that.
So you're a retail therapy type person.
Kind of a guru, more of cheap retail therapy craft person. So,
But again, these are things, even shopping,
right.
going out and looking for things, these are things that make your brain feel happy. And, I've seen you be able to change your brain from angry, irritable, frustrated, with a couple minutes of just walking through a store and relaxing. And I've seen you get, a completely different mood change.
There's also that classic one that I learned with our foster adopt son was, I'm losing my therapeutic attitude. I'm going to go have a cup of tea, and your life will be better if I can get my brain changed. So there are ways to do this.
Absolutely. Some of mine, I kayak, I ride motorcycle, I ride bicycle, I read Western stories and science fiction stories. Everyone should have a list.
Yeah.
Of
And
things.
do them.
And if you're going to have, if you're going to have a traumatized child, in underneath your defenses in your family system, and you're going to have a lot of triggers for sad, scared, and mad, and you want to be able to counter those triggers inside yourself. You want to be able to keep yourself not getting stuck in those triggers, and keep yourself being able to move. And this is really, it's a very powerful principle. I can't say this enough.
Right, and it helps our brain become flexible. Again, we're talking neurology. Our brain has to be flexible to shift back and forth. And in that, we actually have to accept responsibility for our emotions.
Exactly.
That is so hard for people. It's so the tendency is to blame others, but to accept that these are mine, and then to be able to label them.
And I love the work of Martin Seligman and his positive psychology work. And I mean, he just clearly demonstrates that we have the ability as humans to make ourselves feel happy even in the scariest situations. So if you have the ability, then you have the responsibility.
You do. And in this process of being able to manage our emotions, then we can co-regulate with our children and not get sucked in. And too many times parents have said, it's like this big chasm that I'll fall into if I go and help my child with their emotions. But it's our responsibility too, as a parent, to help our kids with their emotions.
I have yet to run into a parent who could help their child with their emotions, who couldn't. Now, this is one of the skills we look for: label their own emotions at any given point accurately.
Right. Otherwise, the depressed child and the depressed mom, we're back to limbic brain sharing. So those are the things we see parents doing. We also hear them express that they know emotions drive behaviors.
Exactly.
That is such a big statement. We could have umpteen videos just on that alone. Emotions drive behaviors.
Especially the problematic ones.
Oh, yes.
Problematic behaviors in our work is almost always driven by feelings of fear, sadness, and the desire to avoid them in one way, shape, or form. And when parents are able to recognize that link, well, this behavior is emotionally driven, then you're able to help the child go underneath the behavioral and start dealing with the emotions.
Which is healing.
Exactly.
That's the healing piece. So they know that emotions drive behaviors, and they also know their brains will be healthier if they do the self-care things, even if it's a 5-minute or a 15-minute or half day, whatever they can eke out, that their brains will be healthier if they have a relief from it.
I've struggled with, over the years, parents and clients who will tell me that they can't. What's the point of being happy, if you will, when the trigger, I'm going to just come back to the same old trigger. It's not going to go away. So one of the things we look for is that parent who understands that, even if you only get 5 minutes away from the scared, where your brain is feeling better, you're better off.
Yes.
Your decisions will be better. Your ability to face those triggers will be improved. And oftentimes, when you start talking a 5-minute thing, you can do, many throughout the course of a day.
Right.
The example that I use with families is, back in 2008 when my wife died, that's a trigger that doesn't go away.
No.
It stays there. It's in your life. It's, it's basically part of everything you deal with there. But in order to not be overwhelmed by that trigger, what I had to do is I had to develop more skills that could temporarily get me out of it. Right. Now, I would fall back in, I would fall back into the sad and the scared associated with that, but then I would learn to get myself out. I even, in some ways, going to therapy was really just an intentional way to make myself feel the sad and scared so that I could process it a little more. And again, I didn't have to be afraid of it because I knew that I could get myself out of that sad and scared later afterwards. And it enabled me to actually utilize my therapy time positively. because I didn't have to be afraid of those feelings. I didn't have to avoid them. Didn't have to minimize them. I could share them openly in therapy, and then I could move on afterwards.
Kind of keeping them in this capsule.
Yeah.
And they're contained.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we as parents become, are the containers for our kids' emotions.
Correct.
And your therapist was helping you with that. So we have parents who do particular things. They express full range of emotions. They have self-care. They take responsibility. They label their emotions. They share their emotions with their kids. They know that emotions drive behaviors, and they know their brain's healthier if they take care of with the self-care and stuff. With that, then the families will be more regulated themselves. They'll be able to enter into activities that they know is going to be challenging. Playing games with the one child that struggles with the game, or gets mad and doesn't tolerate things, and they're going to have plans on how to help those kids manage their emotions, not avoid them, but they're going to go still do those activities that every family does that may generate some emotions, and they'll help their kids with those emotions.
I remember in previous videos we talked about the downward spiral that occurs for families when they bring traumatized children into their system, and one of the empowering pieces of that negative spiral is that you start to avoid experiences with people that are criticizing you.
Right.
And what we see is as a strength, you can see this is where you don't have to avoid people who criticize you. You can, like you said, you can encapsulate it, you can understand it, you can say, interaction with this person's behaviors are going to make me feel sad and scared, but afterwards I can get myself back out of it.
Right.
So it keeps it as a discrete event rather than building up into an unbeatable mountain.
Right. And families will also take on challenging activities that might be scary. I am not a height person, but I can tolerate some roller coasters, and I will do them just so I can enjoy the activities with my kids, and they need to see me accept challenges that are uncomfortable so that they will continue to accept challenges.
And allow those challenges to roll.
Yes.
I'm put in mind one time of a girl who said a traumatized child, wanted to play football. And of course the parents we're not letting her do that. She's going to get in there, she's going to get hurt, and then she's going to bring all that anger back into the family. We don't want that. So we're going to nix that. We're going to tell her she can't play football. And basically what that was saying was, we can't handle the emotions that you will have when this doesn't work out for you. And that's not a good place to be. So we look for families that can allow those situations, can stay connected to a child, but allow them to have experiences that aren't.
That we know is not going to be nice.
They're going to generate sad and scared. But we can be with them. But when we have this knowledge of this principle, and we can regulate ourselves, we can be with them in the sad and scared, and then we can take care of ourselves and move ourselves back into happy.
Which leads to the last place that we see families that are following this principle in a positive way is they can talk then about those successes and the failures.
That's right.
That occur.
One of the things that I enjoy after we run a course of working with people is that idea that when they come in and they sit there and laugh and with me and say, I got caught up in my scared, and I turned it into mad, and I started to yell, and I was like a half an hour into the fit when I recognized that I needed to change and stuff, and it's so powerful. And then to have that ability to go back and like you said, talk about it, to go back and tell your child, this is what happened. I got caught up. I got turned. And I turned it in. I don't want to do that.
Right.
I'm sorry. I'm going to keep working on it.
Yeah.
And so will you.
Yeah. John Gottman talks about us as parents being emotional coaches.
Exactly.
And that is such a classic example of being an emotional coach.
And I don't think anybody wants to learn from the perfect model.
No.
So the ability to share our mistakes in the area of emotional regulation and how they hurt us.
Right.
actually allows the children to grow, to have the permission to grow and experience, to make mistakes, and to talk to us about those mistakes, which is what we all want.
Right, right.
But we don't realize that if we can't talk about our mistakes, why should we ask the children to talk about theirs?
And there will be no real perfect model, because that perfect person wouldn't be having a range of emotions or anything. They would try to be like,
yeah, they
too
couldn't.
perfect. They couldn't do it.
Couldn't be a model. A perfect example couldn't be a model for a child who's trying to learn.
Right. Thank you very much. Hope you're able to take Principle 3, the positive examples, and institute those in your family.